Imagine a small, dimly lit room. A spoken word night.
Oh, yeah. Low ceiling, sticky floor.
Exactly. Single spotlight on a microphone stand.
Yeah.
And you're sitting there, and you're expecting someone to come up and, tell a story with a beginning, middle, and end.
Right. You want a narrative.
You want a narrative about how the world works. But instead, the speaker walks up, grabs the mic, and basically tells you that the steering wheel you think you're holding,
Yeah.
it's not connected to anything.
That is a setting that is, it's designed for discomfort. And that's exactly where we're starting today. Usually on these deep dives, we're looking at, academic papers, case studies, tech journalism.
The hard stuff.
The hard stuff, yeah. But today, our primary source is a piece of spoken word poetry.
Which is a bit of a left turn for us.
It is. It is. But sometimes art, specifically poetry, it just captures the psychology of a system better than a data table can. The piece is titled Influence versus Power, and it's from a collection called The Illusion of Control and the Weight of Influence. And the reason we're doing this isn't, for the rhyme scheme.
Right.
We're analyzing it because it presents this brutal, really effective argument about systems theory.
Right. And the core argument is this distinction between power and influence. We tend to think of them as the same thing. If you have influence, you have power. But this source argues they're actually opposites, that power is this comforting lie we tell ourselves about control.
Yeah, influence.
Influence is the messy, chaotic, actual mechanics of how change happens.
It's an attempt to strip away, the great man theory of history and look at the airflow of the room instead.
So our mission today is to see if we can handle the truth this piece is selling. It's about stripping away the illusion of being in the driver's seat.
But to do that, you have to hear it.
You have to hear the argument in its raw form. So we're going to read the piece. I'll take the first half, you take the second, and then we're going to tear it apart and see how it applies to, everything from corporate management to your daily mood.
Let's do it.
So I used to think people had power.
Yeah.
Power. It was a thing. You could wake up in the morning and be like, yes, today I will be powerful. Turns out that's not a thing. That's just something we say when we don't understand why shit keeps happening without asking us. Because if power were real, I said someone would be in charge by now. And if you look around, nobody's driving this car. We're all just leaning on the wheel, pretending it's intentional. People love the word power, though. It makes everything feel cleaner. Power implies control. Control implies will. Will implies someone knows what the fuck they're doing. Influence doesn't give you that comfort. Influence is messy. Influence doesn't care about your beliefs. Influence doesn't stop to explain itself. Influence is like kick a soccer ball off a cliff because you're bored. And a week later, some guy in the ocean doesn't die. No intention, no meaning, no destiny, just interaction. That's influence.
Yeah, and humans hate that because influence doesn't flatter us. Power says, you matter because you chose. Influence says, you mattered because you were there. Big difference. So we invented power to feel less embarrassed about how little authorship we actually have. We talk about power structures like they're furniture. You can just rearrange the room and suddenly the building works differently. No, you change the chairs. The airflow didn't give a shit. What actually runs things is repetition, familiarity, what people keep orienting around because it's already there. That's why replacing leaders never works. We keep acting like the face is the engine. It's adorable. We're like, no, this time it'll be different. We changed the guy.
Yeah.
Yeah. But you didn't change what everyone keeps reacting to. You didn't change what people measure themselves against. You didn't change what keeps getting named over and over and over until it feels real. That's influence doing laps around your concept of power.
And the worst part, you don't opt out. Even when you're doing nothing, you're still part of it. You don't get a neutral corner. There is no observer seat. Your attention bends things. Your absence bends things. Your jokes bend things. Your outrage bends things. Your silence bends things. Reality doesn't ask, are they meant to participate? That's why the whole idea of willpower kind of layers. Willpower is what we call it when something worked once. Now, we want to feel like we did that. Most of the time, willpower, stuff just lined up and we took the credit. So when people start screaming about power, who has it, who's abusing it, who's stealing it, what they're really doing is panicking about influence. Because influence doesn't announce itself. It just accumulates quietly, casually, through habits, patterns, symbols, timing. Power wants a spotlight. Influence doesn't even need a stage. It just needs you to keep showing up the same way, reacting to the same shit like it's new.
And that's the part that freaks people out because once you see that, you can't unsee it. You realize you were never fighting power. You were just swimming in influence and calling it a war. So it felt noble. And suddenly the question isn't, how do we take control? It's, Why do we keep feeding the same conditions
Yeah, left,
and
right.
expecting a different outcome? Which is a way less exciting question. No chance. No heroes, no villains, just responsibility without drama. And honestly, that's probably why nobody likes it.
All right. Nobody likes it. I mean, I can see why it's incredibly cynical.
It is.
But let's pause and challenge the central premise.
Yeah.
Right off the bat, nobody's driving this car.
Okay.
That sounds profound in a poem, but in the real world.
Yeah.
I mean, if my boss walks in and fires me, or a government passes a law that taxes me, that feels like driving.
Sure.
That feels like power. Is the source just playing with semantics here?
That's a fair pushback. It is. We experience authority as something very real. But I think what the source is doing is making a distinction between authority, which is the title, the ability to sign the paycheck, and outcome control. The boss can fire you, yes. That is a discrete action. But can the boss control the morale of the team that's left behind?
Yeah.
Can government control how the market reacts to that new tax?
So power is the ability to, pull a lever.
Yeah.
But influence is what actually happens after the lever is pulled.
Precisely. And often the lever doesn't do what the driver thought it would do at all. And this is where we get into the psychology of why we cling to this idea of power. The poem says, power implies control. Control implies will.
Right.
Well, humans have a cognitive bias. It's called hyperactive agency detection. We are basically evolved to look for a doer behind every event.
So if the grass moves, we want to believe it's a lion, not just the wind.
Correct. So when we see some massive societal shift, like an economic crash or a huge cultural trend, we want to believe a lion did it, a powerful person, a cabal, a leader.
Yeah.
And the poem is arguing that, often it's just the wind. It's just interaction.
Which brings us to, I think, the most chaotic image in the whole piece. The soccer ball. You kick a ball off a cliff because you're bored. And a week later, a guy in the ocean doesn't die.
This is such a poetic description of what systems theorists call complex adaptive systems.
Okay.
In a linear system, you push A, B moves. Simple. In a complex system, you push A, which hits a rock, which scares a bird, which distracts a pilot.
And saves a guy in the ocean.
Right. Now, here's the power versus influence trap. If you were the guy who kicked the ball and you found out you saved a life, what would your ego want to do?
Oh, I'd want to claim it. 100%. I'd want to say, yes, I calculated the trajectory.
That is the illusion of authorship that the source talks about. We look at the result of messy influence, a viral tweet, a product that takes off, a lucky break,
Yeah.
and we retroactively apply a narrative of power. We say, I did that. I have the will.
But the source is just ruthless here. No intention, no meaning, just interaction.
It is.
But doesn't that feel a little nihilistic? I mean, if it's just interaction, why do anything?
See, that's the anxiety talking. We feel safe when we think there's a script. But understanding this is actually a tool. If you start obsessing over control, which, spoiler, you don't have,
Right.
you can actually start looking at the mechanics of influence, which is all around you.
Let's look at those mechanics then. The furniture versus airflow metaphor.
Yeah.
This part it felt so applicable to anyone who's ever worked at a big company.
It's the standout metaphor for organizational change, I think. We talk about power structures like they're furniture.
So the furniture is the org chart, the titles, the office layout.
Yes, all the visible hierarchy. And we think, if we just move the furniture, fire the VP, hire a new manager, the room changes. But what does the source say?
The airflow didn't give a shit.
Exactly.
So what is the airflow in a practical sense? Give me a concrete example.
Okay. Imagine a company with a toxic culture of burnout.
Easy to imagine.
Everyone works late. Nobody speaks up in meetings because they're afraid of looking stupid. The board sees this and says, we need change.
Yeah.
So they fire the CEO. That's a power move.
Big power move.
They bring in a new guy who gives a big speech about wellness, another power move. They change the titles of department heads. They're moving the furniture.
But 3 months later, everyone is still working late and nobody is speaking up.
Because the airflow hasn't changed. The airflow is the accumulated habits. It's the junior analyst seeing the senior analyst sending emails at midnight, so she does it too.
It's the subtle eye roll when someone leaves at 5 p.m.
That's influence. It's not a rule written on a wall. It's the behavior that gets repeated until it feels like a rule.
The source calls this what keeps getting named over and over until it feels real. That's a heavy concept. How do we name things without speaking?
Through emergent behavior. You name urgency by responding to Slack messages in 30 seconds. You name fear by staying silent when a bad idea is proposed. You're not exercising power. You're not the boss. Yep. But you are contributing to the airflow that makes that toxic culture possible.
This leads to the part of the poem that I really struggled with the most.
Which one?
The idea that there's no neutral corner. The source says, your absence bends things.
Why do you struggle with that one?
Because sometimes I just want to opt out.
Yeah.
You know, I want to sit in the back of the meeting and just not matter.
Sure.
I want to doom scroll Twitter and just be an observer.
Yeah.
But this is saying that by doing that, I'm actually doing something active.
Okay, let's break that down. Think about the concept of the silent majority.
Right.
Or even the missing stare in a social group. If you're in a meeting and someone proposes a project that is obviously unethical or just doomed to fail, and you sit there and say nothing, what have you done?
You've done more than that.
Your silence is interpreted as consent. You have added your mask to the yes column, even if you hate the idea. That is your absence-bending reality.
Wow.
You created a vacuum where a counter-argument should have been, and the bad idea just rushed in to fill it.
So by not influencing the room towards sanity, I influenced it towards stupidity.
Exactly. Or take your jokes bend things. If you laugh at a cynical joke about how nothing matters in the company, you are reinforcing the airflow of cynicism. Yeah. You are naming cynicism as the accepted currency of the group.
It's the accumulation. That's the scary part.
Yes.
One laugh doesn't matter. But 1,000 laughs over a year creates an environment where nobody tries to fix anything because, hey, nothing matters.
And that is the difference between power and influence that's described here. Power wants a spotlight, the big speech, the firing, the election.
Yeah.
Influence is just dust. It accumulates quietly. But eventually, the dust is so thick, it just buries the furniture.
So if we accept this view, that the driver's seat is empty, the furniture doesn't matter, and the dust is winning, how do we not just curl up in a ball?
Well, the source pivots at the end. It goes from war to responsibility.
Right.
And this is the shift from, let's call it, the general mindset to the gardener mindset.
Okay, unpack that for me. The poem says we were swimming in influence and calling it a war, so it felt noble.
A general looks at the world as a battlefield. They want to capture territory. They issue orders. They believe in linear cause and effect. I attack the hill, I take the hill.
That's the power mindset.
It's the power mindset. It feels heroic. There are enemies and allies.
But a gardener
knows they cannot make a tomato grow. You can scream at a tomato seed all day long. You can issue decrees. You can threaten it. It won't grow faster.
I'm just picturing a CEO screaming at a plant right now.
Yeah.
Deliver Q3 results.
We see that all the time. But the gardener knows their only control is over the conditions.
The soil, water, light.
The soil, water, light, spacing. If you get the conditions right, if you fix the airflow, the growth happens emergently. It happens on its own.
So applying this back to our toxic office example, the general fires the staff.
Right.
The gardener changes the incentives.
The gardener starts by leaving at 5 p.m. themselves, ostentatiously. They change the airflow of what is considered normal. They stop rewarding the midnight emails. They start naming rest as a value, not just in a speech, but in action. They are tending to the environment, not forcing the outcome.
But that's slow.
Incredibly slow and unglamorous, as the source says. No chance, no heroes, no villains.
Just responsibility without drama. Wow, that is a hard sell in the age of social media.
Yeah, it is.
We love the drama, we love the dunk, we love the viral takedown of the bad guy.
Because that feels like power. Posting a furious comment feels like you grabbed the steering wheel, but usually you're just feeding the algorithm.
You're feeding the airflow of outrage.
You're just another particle in the dust storm.
So responsibility without drama just means asking, what am I feeding?
Yes. The source asks, why do we keep feeding the same conditions and expecting a different outcome? If you want a less polarized world, but you engage in polarized argument because it feels good, you are a bad gardener.
You're watering the weeds.
You are watering the weeds.
It's humbling. It really strips away the ego. It says you aren't the main character in a movie about fighting evil.
No.
You're just a part of the ecosystem.
But there's a liberation in that, isn't there? If you stop trying to drive the car, you stop panicking when it swerves, you can look at the swerve and ask, okay, what condition caused that? Was it the road, the tires, the speed?
Yeah.
You become an analyst of influence rather than a victim of powerlessness.
It changes the definition of success. Success isn't I won. Success is I contributed to a better airflow.
Correct. And that is something you can do every single day and every single interaction. You don't need a promotion to do it. You don't need to be elected. You just need to be there.
You mattered because you were there.
That line hits different now, doesn't it? It's not a consolation prize. It's a statement of physics. You have mass. You bend space.
Be careful how you bend it.
Yeah.
That is a fascinating place to land. We started in a smoky room listening to a cynic, and we ended up in a garden with a physicist.
Well, that's the beauty of deconstructing these concepts. You realize that the cynicism of the poem is actually just a very harsh kind of optimism. It says, stop waiting for a savior to drive the car. Start paying attention to how you're leaning on the wheel.
So here's the challenge for everyone listening. The source defined influence as what gets named over and over until it feels real. So look at your day-to-day. Look at your team, your family, your Twitter feed. What are you naming?
Are you naming frustration? Are you naming helplessness? Or are you maybe naming curiosity?
Whatever you react to, you keep. And remember, you don't have an observer seat. You're in the game. Thanks for diving deep with us.
See you in the airflow.